new sub-series, which is called AI in Agriculture Learning Series, which is what we are now. It's, I think, the fourth or the fifth session of the Artificial Intelligence series. And today we will be taking a very important topic, harnessing artificial intelligence for sustainable soil health, which is now very apt since Africa is going to do a soil health summit next week. And so this is very apt as there is a huge interest world over in terms of developing a global coalition to build sustainable soil health systems. Now, I think just to let you know some logistical announcements, the previous sessions from this webinar series are available on our website, and I think this series is also available on YouTube now. And Sunil will put a link in the chat. So if you want to access all the earlier webinars, you can access them. Please keep your microphones on mute to prevent any background noise. We will have a virtual Q&A session during and after the presentation. So please type in the questions which come to your mind and anything you want to share when the speakers are speaking so that the question can be addressed during the Q&A sessions. We will harvest key questions and then speakers will take some of these questions and after we have the speakers and the discussants. The format we are following today is that we have two speakers and I'll introduce them as they come, and we have two distinct discussants as well, and I'll introduce them as we come, and then there is a 25-minute Q&A session at the end. I don't want to spend a lot of time on these topical issues because the speakers will cover them. I just want to make that we are making significant investments in soil health data, innovation, and digital ecosystems all across the world for last 4 or 5 years. And the advent of generative AI and also the conventional AI, machine learning is helping us to develop very, very robust decision models and also develop very relevant products and services which could be used by smallholders. So I will now introduce the first presenter, Lulseged Tamene Desta. He is the principal scientist at the Alliance for Biodiversity International and CIAT, International Center for Tropical Agriculture. He has more than 20 years experience in agriculture, resource management, spatial planning, geospatial analysis. He currently is the director for multifunctional landscapes research area of the Alliance and one CGIAR. He leads an interdisciplinary team of experts engaged in co-design and co-development of approaches, methods, innovations, and tools that support development of landscapes that are productive, biodiverse, low emission, and resilient. And today he's going to talk about the experience of how advisories have been developed on soil health and services to smallholders using a lot of data, using machine learning and all other tools to do that. And he will also talk about the scope of AI in future work in Ethiopia and Africa in general. Over to you, Lulseged. I think you have 20 minutes now, and we look forward to your talk.
Desta, we cannot hear you if you are speaking. Hi, Desta, can you hear us?
Hello? You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Parmi, for for the introduction. Thanks all for the opportunity. I will present some examples that we have been doing in Ethiopia on developing agro-advisory systems for crops in general through bundling different technologies. So first, just to let you know from where I am from, I am working with the Alliance of Bioversity and CIAT, as already mentioned. This is an international agricultural research organization covering different thematic areas, focusing on agriculture, natural resources, digital solutions, and climate. We are organized in 6 or 7 research areas. As you can see, those 7 organized there, and I'm leading the multifunctional landscapes component or research area. We work along the nutrition, agriculture, and environment nexus, trying to see the interaction among those and optimize suitable to optimize decisions for partners. We have presence globally, almost in all the continents. Our headquarters, when we were 2 different centers, were in 2 places. Bioversity was in Italy and the CIAT was in Latin America, but now we have our headquarters in Italy, Rome, but with a big presence in Latin America, in Cali, Colombia. We have more than 1,000 staff, large number of projects, and so on and so forth. So to go to my presentation, just as a short background, we know, especially in Africa, we are dominated by smallholder farmers. We were struggling to satisfy their livelihoods. Input use is very low, including fertilizer, compared to the global amount, and as a result, yield is also very low. Mechanization is very poor, less than 50 tractors per square kilometer compared to over 100 in different countries. And as a result, still, even after Abuja declaration of where different countries made commitments, only few have satisfied the growth, an average growth of 6% due to conflict, overriding climate change, land degradation, low input use, mismanagement, and so on. So still, there is a huge amount of money spent to import food across Africa, and this may increase even by 2050 unless measures are taken. As a result, there are questions, what research and development organizations can do to support, the continent rectify those challenges. One of the entry points. So this is the solution we think is, we can call it a disruptive solution, or in general transformation from what currently is happening to a modern system. Step by step, we might not reach to the right level at the moment, but there are possibilities to proceed, and there are opportunities in general. Good opportunities. Number one, we have large number of youth in Africa, a significant number who may be attracted to use technologies. So it is a matter of fine-tuning their interest to go to agricultural sector. And there are also a lot of developments in digital solutions that we can easily fine-tune and tailor to our situations. So we know the latecomer advantage, and so on and so forth. So because of these possibilities, with optimal interventions, so research and development, there is a possibility to support Africa and other developing regions. In our case, as an example, in Ethiopia, we have been doing some works last 4 or 5 years with different partners, and we started from the fundamental, which we think is data. To transform agriculture, we need data, and in most of African countries, there are a lot of efforts to do research on agriculture, but the data are not available. If they are available, they are not organized in a usable format. There are no standard, and so forth and so forth. So what we tried to do was to try to find the data sets that have been collected for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And the approach we used was trying to find some partners who can, bring the data sets from where they are available. Then we worked across the whole value chain. We have data, then we can avail the data, develop analytical procedures, and develop advisories. So how we approached it was through creating a coalition of the willing, because despite that, we know that there are a lot of data sets in the country, it was not possible to identify or find those data sets. So what we said is we formed a willing group of people who are, who accepted to share data or support the data sharing process. So in 2018, we met with a large group of people, and around 30 people volunteered to give their data sets or to share the data sets. Then we developed a guideline on the principles of data sharing, and then we created a task force, a technical team to support anything that we want to move forward. And we created a community of practice, geospatial community of practice, big data analysis community of practice, and those who develop guidelines. So this has now grown and we have around 150 coalition members, including from abroad, from the US, from Holland, Kenya, Tanzania, and other countries. So this has enabled us to collect large number of data, and then once the data are available, we needed to develop a system where they can be transformed, harmonized, and so on. So we have generally two sets of data sets. One is from legacy, another one is from crop response. That legacy is on soil property, and another one is crop response to lime, fertilizer, organic, and organic climate smart agriculture practices. So we used different approaches to harmonize, to standardize those data sets. We built a data hub in the Ministry of Agriculture, and also another data hub related to research or in the Institute of Agriculture Research in EIR in Ethiopia. So the two are also linked through API. So that means we have brought the data set, we harmonized the whole process of cleaning and so on and so forth, and we have set up a data storage place and developed data sharing guideline and directive. But once that was done, then the next step is we have to demonstrate what we can do from that data set. What's then? So we have followed generally around 2 to 3 approaches. The first one is what we call it a data-driven approach, where we have more than 50,000 data sets, data points collected related to crop response to different inputs. So what we try to do is we use those data sets with corresponding climate, soil, biophysical, and other parameters as covariates to predict crop response to fertilizer or input application for the locations we don't know. So we use different machine learning algorithms to do this. This is one. The second one is we used crop models, DSAT and APSIM, to initialize agronomic solutions and the soil fertility conditions. So this was mainly used to complement the good agronomic practices with the data-driven model. And we use also climate model, prediction model, to optimize our advisory for the upcoming season, because whether the upcoming season will be wet or dry, high rain or low rain, the amount of fertilizer we recommend will be different. So we use these 3 approaches, and this is of course, for organic, inorganic, and lime. And we try to integrate this into a web-based system and provide advisories for different stakeholders in different formats. As you can see, this was the first data-driven part, the model-driven part, and the lime one, and the 3 are linked somehow to provide the advisory at the end. And the last one is on the different options that we delivered to the respective partners. Then we have this web app, which is an automated system. Anyone who clicks on a certain area can get an information about the amount and type of fertilizer to apply and the corresponding yield for that location. And then there will be an automated report that will be generated for the users. So the users can choose Ethiopia for now, but we have a possibility to choose other countries in Africa, as we are working to replicate this exercise in Kenya, Malawi, Ghana for now, and also scale to other countries. And also users can choose which inputs to combine, either organic, inorganic, bundle, and so on and so forth. So this is an automated system that updates itself whenever data is available. There are some missing elements to finalize, but this is the way-based for the advisory. Then once the advisory is there, the next step is to disseminate to end users. So we work with different partners, mainly Digital Green in Ethiopia, who have long-time experience on providing disseminating advisories to farmers through the extension system and collecting feedback. So we started with video-based approach. Then we used also extension and lead farmers. Then we used SMS and maps as well to disseminate the advisory, because at the moment we are lacking a parcel map of farmers. We needed to use some kind of maps to aggregate the advisories based on similar response units for a specific fertilizer application. And recently, Digital Green have started to use chatbot Telegram to send the message through the extension to the farmers and also collect feedback and share experiences. There's a Telegram group so that every farmer, the extension workers can ask questions, communicate, and learn experiences among themselves. This is one. And then with another private sector called Lersha, we are also working with them on specific components related to insurance and credit. Because when we assess this fertilizer usability in some selected sites using user-centered approach, human-centered approach, we identified that some have said the advisor is very nice, they like it, but they cannot find it. And other groups said it's a bit expensive to them. So we wanted to test whether or not availing credit and insurance can facilitate implementation of the advisory. So this is the dissemination component. So we have the data, we have the database analytics, and the dissemination part. Then we have validation exercise for Digital Green to pilot the work and scale. We needed to have validation and aggregate information. So we did this validation around 280 farmers. And you can see the yield gain, the efficiency and profitability is significantly better compared to both the blanket recommendation and also a local recommendations that the farmers use. So the farmers have voted that comparing the three advisories, the farmers nearly all of them have voted that our recommendation is the best. Then also recently, since last year, we piloted on large number of farmers, more than 3,000 farmers, to see, to see how the advisory response compared to farmers' practices. There is a very significant difference here also, close to 38% fee yield gain compared to what farmers usually do. And even this was acknowledged by the district officials in the different areas where we have piloted a very large number of farmers with Digital Green. We repeated this piloting last year, and we are analyzing data for this year to see how far it's better compared to what farmers do. Then there are some steps that we are trying to do because there are missing elements. One is we wanted to have organic is being embedded, but not in a detailed manner because of lack of data. What about climate smart agriculture practices, good agronomic practices in an integrated manner? And then typology, where we are more or less trying to do, all farmers may not be able to apply the amount of fertilizer we provide, so we have to tailor to their resource endowments. And to do expand access credit and insurance, and even mechanization, we have the options, and also to do detailed thorough analysis on the economic and profitability, because that is the key, and then link with disease and so on. So after all, we can bundle this. And the second one is on which dissemination option is better for which group of farmers, and even including the type of advisory, because it may be different for women and men, young and elderly. So we are working on those to customize. Then one important thing we have observed as we work this fertilizer recommendation is responses vary depending upon the degradation level of the landscape, including erosion, deforestation, and so on. So that means that we need to also consider restoration and conservation options to enhance the usability and the purpose of the fertilizer recommendation. So we already have piloted, okay, we said it is good, but we have observed that there are differences. So we have started to see, where should we target. We are using KRI and other modeling tools to define where best should we intervene conservation restoration options so that our response efficiency of fertilizer application is high. And also we are using what kind of agroforestry practices can we integrate into the farmers' plots so that the yield gain and including the biodiversity is good. And we have also tracing the, input fertilizer, the plants, the trees from the nurseries up to planting them into the farmers' fields and monitoring the performance of those so that we can incentivize the farmers. This is a traceability exercise, and then we have also agroecology index, to report in terms of diversity and so on. So this is something that we wanted to do. The left part is done. The different models are available, the tools are available, but we are trying to integrate those in pilot in the upcoming seasons. Then some challenges, as you can see, we have different challenges. One is data harmonization, collection, availability, because there are different standards, different units. We have created already standards and so on, but the possibility to use all of them by all the partners is not yet there. Infrastructure, we have 2 data hubs now, but we have to decentralize those across regions, and it will be expensive. Capacity, use of machine learning technologies, we have to build a lot of national capacity for them to use. And in full model integration, the one I showed, the whole process, we have the process-based, the data-driven, the climate and so on, are not fully integrated yet in a dynamic manner, so we have to do those soon. Then hyperlocalization is key. So far, we are disseminating the advisory based on the connection with farmers and extension, but we want to also have a detailed understanding of the farmers' aspirations, needs, priorities, and even some management practices they have done last year and they aspire to do so that it will be more dynamic and responsive to their situations. And also we have the governance system is a challenge, is the data sharing and data management. We have already discussed with the Ministry of Agriculture on how we can develop a national governance system for data management. All the things I have showed you are already housed and based within the national system, so we provide the capacity, otherwise they own all the targets. And then related to soil health, we are trying to see, so far we have developed a very good foundation. We have the data, different machine learning approaches, and also we have very good performance. But how do we optimize this in terms of crop and soil health? So we know that data is available from different sources, as you can see, from remote sensing, from ground, citizen science, and all sorts. That means there is a possibility to do some more complex things and optimize soil health and crop productivity using artificial intelligence technologies. So if we are able to collect data in real time and understand the response in terms of soil health, crop health, and so on, that means there is a possibility to predict what will happen with a certain intervention, a certain management, and advise partners what they should and they can expect. So it's not about what we are trying to do is not about soil health alone, but also what should be the corresponding management option and what is the corresponding expectation in terms of yield and so on and so forth, which will be, of course, very important to develop precision agriculture, tailored advisories, and ultimately we can be able to target those who have performed very well in terms of payment for ecosystem services, carbon credit, biodiversity finance, which is now an upcoming event. And then the next question is, how do we do it? Where do we do it? We can cluster regionally or landscape-based or farm plot-based. It depends upon where we are now, depending upon the data availability, but we can start at landscape scale, and then slowly we can proceed to maybe create similar response units so that we have aggregated areas where similar certain intervention or a group of interventions can bring in similar responses. It can be in fertilizer or any other input, or as we go along with data and so on, we can even target farms and plots. So this is something that we want to do, and we want to work, promote this for the World Bank to support or other donors to support, because as far, any climate-related interventions that are being aspired at global level cannot succeed if the soil and landscapes are not healthy. And all the opportunities we have in terms of tools and systems can enable us to do near real-time monitoring and management scenario analysis. So we have this. All publications are available. You can scan the barcode and you can see what we have there, what we have done, what we have not done, and what we are trying to do. And also we work with different partners. With GIZ, we started with CGR, Excellence in Agronomy, with World Bank through ACRA support, which is very important now. Even for me, the initial ACRA support was to provide climate smart agriculture and climate information services, but now they are supporting also the soil health in collaboration with the Excellence in Agronomy. We have also mixed crop systems, the national partners, private sector, and CGR centers have participated. And in general, we have close to 150 members who have been working with this work. So the coalition of the willing, as you can see, the logo represents all partners. So the ones we are showing are those who have invested something, but the coalition embeds or brings all of them. Thank you so much. I have put the email address for myself and Gulatao, but also there are so many actors there. So this is for initial contacts for questions and answers. Thank you very much. I hope I am within time. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Lulseged. This is a very rich presentation, and it shows how CIAT and Ethiopia are really producing, I would call them world-class approaches. This really needs to go to the whole world, and we will create some systemic opportunities for all the countries in Africa and then all over to learn from your experience. You brought a number of aspects, and I think you have brought institutional change also by bringing a lot of people who are scattered, and that's been the problem in most of these efforts, that things have remained scattered. So you built a coalition, and you also then brought the technical rigor using data science and technologies and all to really develop a very robust model and then make it accessible to different stakeholders in a very creative kind of way. And Lulseged will definitely work closely with you going forward to build an African coalition, a bigger coalition, because there are almost 15 countries in Africa who would like to work on this agenda, and we have to really use your use case as an immersion location for that to strengthen. So please watch for our communication to you to take this forward, and many thanks. And to all the audience, you have been started asking questions. Don't feel shy. Lulseged is there to answer your questions in the chat as well. So put your questions in the chat, because we will be only able to take some questions at the end. But if you can ask this on chat questions, Lulseged, can you look at the chat and respond to some of the questions on the chat, and I'll pick up some of the key questions at the end and come back to you later on. Okay, moving on now. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, moving on now, let's go to our next presenter, who is Anirudh Keny. He's Director of Business Development at Boomitra. Boomitra, recently won many international awards, and they are trying to really bring the whole soil carbon measurement and creating a really a whole carbon market. And they have a kind of an ambition to do gigaton level of carbon removal. And it's a very, very exciting institution which has come. And so Anirudh is good. Anirudh has set up projects in India, East Africa, and forged partnerships with many people, and worked with almost like 100,000 what they call as carbon farmers. And he currently leads Boomitra's policy team and also establishes new projects as well. Anirudh, over to you. 20 minutes begins now.
So much, Ramesh sir. Appreciate that. Just give me a second. I hope my deck is visible to all. Okay. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you, Parvati, for that. So we are Boomitra. For those who don't know, Boomitra in Sanskrit translates to friend of the earth. That is essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to store carbon dioxide, or rather carbon in the soils, and of course by keeping a very, very farmer-first approach towards this. So no prizes for guessing. Climate change is a big problem. And of course, there's a huge potential to sequester carbon. So it's Professor Ratan Lal, who's considered by many to be a guru of soil science. He says that at least 133 billion tons of carbon has been lost from the soils, right? It's a huge opportunity to put this back. Another number which really bothers me is the fact that, smallholder farmers, especially across the global south, are spending $368 billion of their own money to create adaptation for themselves. Right, so this needs to change, and we need to provide finance to these farmers, payment for ecosystem services to these farmers and ranchers, so that they can adapt to these changes. What's the problem today in the carbon market? And I'll focus a little bit on the global south aspect, is that farm sizes in my country, I'm from India, farm sizes are really, really small, right? And this sort of enables an ecosystem where for smallholder farmers, who are a big part of the supply chain, are excluded. Then, of course, carbon or carbon credits is a virtual kind of a commodity, even though it's a very important commodity. So that's why the transparency and the integrity is very, very crucial. Now, that has always been a challenge because the monitoring, reporting, and verification of the soil carbon stocks has been very, very expensive and very challenging and time-consuming as well. And that's what we're trying to change, is that we want to put as per Minister said, like we want to put a gigaton worth of this carbon back into the soils, but by keeping a very, very farmer first or a landowner first approach towards this. Now, we all hear about these targets at COP, and COP29 is coming up soon again. If we want to meet our 1.5 degree targets, this is a huge opportunity. This is a huge opportunity for sort of adaptation to be created. And if we have to meet this, soils, nature-based solutions rather, I would say as a whole, need to be a very, very important part of this portfolio. And the only way to enable this, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in mangroves, whether it's in forestry, is by having DMRV, which is digital monitoring, reporting, and verification. That's going to open up the market, create transparency, create very, very high integrity projects. At the same time, we must look at all kinds of carbon markets, not just voluntary markets, but also compliance markets. And of course, as we move towards COP29, towards Article 6 as well. Okay, so I painted a slightly gloomy picture, but I want to take you to Kenya briefly, and I want you to meet Rose. So this is to tell you that, if provided the right ecosystem and circumstances, the farmers will change. So Rose earlier was producing just 0.89 tons worth of maize on her farm. But due to the actions of our partners, such as the Farm to Market Alliance, she has increased her yields to 1.8 tons. That means she has improved her livelihood. At the same time, very, very importantly, she's sequestering 1.2 tons of carbon per acre per year on her farm, right? And she's going to get paid for this ecosystem service that she is doing. How do we enable this? So Boomitra works with partners such as the Farm to Market Alliance, such as Yara, such as nonprofits like Welt Hunger, who help farmers adopt improved land management practices, which lead to an increase in soil carbon. We then measure this increase in soil carbon in the first 30 centimeters, leveraging our proprietary remote sensing based technology. We then go through a third-party certification where we are audited actually multiple times by a UNFCCC certified carbon auditor. And then, of course, once these audits are completed, then a commodity is created, which is known as the carbon credit. Now, this commodity can be traded with, let's say, companies who have net zero targets. It could be countries as well. And of course, whatever value is generated, we make sure that majority of that value is passed back to the farmer into his or her account. We also provide a significant percentage of the credit value back to our partners. So all in all, we make sure that at least 70 to 75 cents on the dollar is going back to the communities. That's very, very important, right? We have to have a community first aspect to this. To talk a little bit about the technology we use. So we use various satellites, we use various satellites across the electromagnetic spectrum, which are calibrated using ground truth data. Right? These are calibrated using ground truth data, which is essentially which means the soil samples which may have been taken in the past. Now, leveraging our AI, we are not only able to predict soil carbon, but also soil moisture, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium, as well as various other parameters, right? So what this ensures is that once we are able to sort of map out or monitor a field, we know what's happening to the carbon stocks over there, because what's the worst thing possible is that we store the carbon and then it gets released back. So leveraging this technology, we can always keep a close eye on a farm level basis as to what's happening on that particular patch of land. And of course, none of this would be possible, as I said, without the calibration data sets. And as I've mentioned, the calibration data sets are, high quality ground truth data, which is the soil samples. It could be taken through Walkley Black, but ideally you'd want to use like dry combustion as a mode of your calibration data. For us, any points after 2012, so any soil sample taken after 2012 will be usable. So that means we don't have to create a separate exercise altogether and spend large amounts of capital and time to collect newer soil samples. But rather what we require from the existing soil samples is, of course, the latitude and longitude of the point of collection, the date of the collection, what is the soil organic carbon or soil organic matter. It's very important that the depth of the sample should be 30 centimeters plus, because this is what the third party standard mandates, that it should be 30 centimeters plus the carbon stocks that you are accumulating. And of course, the bulk density, if it is available, it's great. It makes the model much, much better. And apart from this, of course, as I've mentioned, we do have the ability to sense the NPK, the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And of course, if these parameters are available, those can be used as well. Yeah. Now, how it works is that like when you do a soil sample, right, you can only take one point in time. But when you're using, let's say, remote sensing based technology with a highly localized model, you can essentially look at the soil carbon changes over a season as well. Now, what this enables is, because this has been one of the criticisms in the carbon market, is the over-crediting aspect. Now, what having this kind of a data set enables is that there must be accurate measurements, and of course there should be accurate issuance of the credits. We should not be over issuing credits, and this is what it enables us to do. Yeah, and of course, what is the real world impact? Because of course, all of this AI is very, very high tech, but what is the real world impact? I don't know if there are many people from India on the call, but those who are, you may know that during the month of November and December, Delhi gets really smogged up. One of the reasons of that is the stubble burning, which takes place in Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP. The reason for this is because farmers only have 10 days to transition towards their wheat crop, and they can either spend like $15 to $17 to get a machine to plow this crop residue back, or they can just use a matchstick to get rid of this field. So this is one farmer who chose the latter. They chose the matchstick to get rid of the residue. And I would want you to focus on the Q4 of 2022, where you're seeing a big dip in soil carbon. Okay, there's a big dip in the soil carbon, and of course the harvesting has taken place, so there will be a dip, but just do remember what is the quantum, or approximately the quantum, of this dip. Then we see one of our carbon farmers who is using a super seeder to plow the residue back into the soils, and then of course put the wheat seeds as well. So, doing crop residue management as well as doing sort of minimum tillage as much as possible. Now, for this farmer, once again, I'd like you to focus on Q4 of 2022, where you can see, of course, because again, he has harvested the field, so there will be a drop in soil carbon, but please do look at the quantum of the drop, which is just showing that, first of all, that, doing these good practices does lead to, stable carbon stocks. But more importantly, of course, the technology can sense what is happening even on small farms. Like both of these farmers are not more than a couple of hectares to the maximum. So yeah, this is what leveraging sort of scalable and transparent technologies can do. It can give us insights on a farm level, which can then be scaled up across the ecosystem that we are working on. Yeah, so what does leveraging AI enable? So first of all, inclusivity, right? Uh, we work with the we work with the 0.2 acre farmer in Jharkhand. We work with the 5,000 hectare ejido, which is the community land in the Pampas. We work with the 100,000 acre rancher in the Pampas as well. So, leveraging sort of AI and remote sensing based technologies allows inclusivity to take place. And this is very important because, the global South farmers have always been left out of these carbon markets. Yeah, so it's time to bring them in. And of course, once again, I'll keep stressing this, like creating adaptation at scale. Then, of course, is the scalability. Our portfolio, which I do believe will come up in a second, we've managed to scale to about 12 countries in 3 years' time with more than 5 million acres, 150,000 farmers. It's only because of our technology and, of course, very importantly, because of our business model and our partnership model as well. The robustness is very, very important as well, because this is a virtual commodity. We need to have something which is defendable to the scientific community, where we are sure that we are not over crediting, right? The third one is something that is what in the carbon world is, we believe, is very, very important, is dynamic baselines. What you measure against is very, very important. So what we are proposing with our technology, we are actually developing a methodology on this, is that we must do a pharmaceutical trial-esque, approach towards this, wherein which we have our farmers, the carbon farmers, who are doing their improved land management practices. And in a similar agroclimatic zone, in a similar crop, we have farmers who are not doing the good practices. And in a non-invasive manner, we measure the other farmers who are not doing the good practices, right? Because we only need the farm boundaries, that's it, to measure the carbon stocks. And then we measure the control versus the test, and that delta is the true carbon sequestration that has taken place. So this is something which is very important. We're really trying to get the message across on this as well. As I said, like inclusive, leveraging again AI, we are able to work across supply chains. We are crop agnostic, we are almost practice agnostic. So whether you're doing rice wheat or maize wheat or any other cropping system, we can work with them. Once again, this sort of leads to the inclusivity. Then, of course, the results-based payment. We are looking at actual sequestration, which is happening on a farm level or a field level basis. And then, of course, we are providing them the payments for that. And finally, this I believe is very, very important as well, is that we are able to figure out what practice in what region leads to what amount of sequestration. This is a big black box in the carbon world. We are able to solve that. We've done about 200 pilots, whether it's crop residue management in North India, rotational grazing in the Chihuahua and the Sonoran Desert, or better fertilizer management in Kenya. All of these, we can figure out what the carbon yield is, and then of course disseminate practices, with this being as one of the factors. Yeah, very quickly, because I am running short of time, I guess, is our portfolio. So we have a 2 million acre grassland restoration project in the Chihuahua and the Sonoran Desert. We are setting up a project in Colombia very soon. We have, again, a grassland project in the Pampas, where the ranchers over there are reseeding the lands with native grasses. We then, of course, have 2 projects in East Africa, wherein the cropland project, where we work with the World Food Program and Yara, among others, and of course, a grassland restoration project in the Masai Mara. Finally, we have our biggest project in number of farmers, more than 100,000 farmers who we work with across India as well, across supply chains, of course. Technology and partnerships. If we get the opportunity to speak again, this is what I'll keep harping on. These are just some of our partners. We have more than 100 partners across the world. Very quickly, I want to show you the real world. We saw the real world impact. This is the change that can take place in just a matter of time, in just a matter of 3 years, when you are enabling ranchers in Mexico to adopt the good practice, when you're giving them an incentive to. It's just the same time. Yeah, for us, because I did mention that we do have the ability to sense other parameters, we are providing all our farmers with the NPK soil moisture at no cost, because it's being funded by the carbon finance which is being generated. So this is the first time, I guess, that the farmer will get paid to use data, will get paid to accept capacity building services from our partner network. And of course, on the buy side as well, whether you're a buyer in Switzerland or Malaysia or Texas, you can log on to your platform and see what's happening on each and every farm that you have bought credits from, ensuring, of course, no information asymmetry will exist, right? This was actually during the Earthshot Prize audit. So on the left is one of our ranchers. On the right is, as you can see, a fence. Now, of course, on the left is the carbon rancher and doing rotational grazing. Is the same day, you can just see the stark difference which exists. I'll skip this one because this is very similar. And yeah, I mean, we are the winner of the Earthshot Prize, which was awarded to us by Prince William in November. More importantly, 10-month due diligence process, and of course by so many experts and various site visits by Deloitte, and of course Prince William awarded us £1 million to expand our business. Also, of course, we've been recognized by various other entities. Very recently, we won the AI for Climate Resilience in Rural Areas award by the Asian Development Bank. So yeah, I mean, we've gotten various external accolades, and I think, again, the technology and the equitability, I would say, in our business model does play a huge role in that. I will just, what is our ask from this is, we want to work with more farmers. We want guidance, because carbon markets are getting more complex every day. We want your guidance, how can we navigate the various countries that we work in, the various regulations that are being built. And finally, of course, if there are synergistic projects within the bank that make sense, we would like to layer on top of them to add, carbon finance, biodiversity finance on top of them, so that there can be additional incentives for all farmers and ranchers that exist. So yeah, with this, I think I'm on 19 minutes. With this, I'll yield my time. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you again, everybody. Yeah, I'll stop here.
Thanks a lot, Anirudh. Again, a very rich presentation. I think you covered a lot of ground in a short period. And I think, again, there are lots of very interesting questions coming your way. And please look at them in the chat, respond to as much as you can, and we'll pick some of them at the end. So I would like to move to the discussants now. My first discussant is Alicia Miller, who I think is the Chief Strategy Officer for Digital Green. And Digital Green was referred to by Lulseged's presentation also. Alicia has worked in a number of organizations, US Department of State, Gates Foundation, and lots of other places. And now she is working with Digital Green, overseeing the organization's strategic direction, which also is moving towards application of AI with smallholders. So over to you, Alicia. I would request you to spend not 10 minutes, but 7 minutes, because I want to bring in the audience questions at the end. Thank you.
Absolutely. I will keep it short. Just a couple of reflections, and thank you, Parmesh, and everyone for really allowing me to kind of reflect on this. I think it was two great presentations, and a few things stuck out to me that I wanted to kind of highlight. One was, I think Lulseged talked about how part of the genesis of this work on site-specific fertilizer recommendations really started with an in-person experience discussing sharing data and basically volunteering to exchange that data in order to make this happen. I think that's really important because Digital Green has been part of several efforts to kind of support data exchange, digital technology, but also data exchange and sharing platforms for agriculture, working with national governments in several places, and then also subnational kinds of different groups of partners. And one of the things we've noticed is that despite kind of a lot of willingness in theory for people to share data for specific outcomes, it oftentimes actually doesn't materialize in the way that you would expect. It's harder than you would expect. And I was struck by Lulseged talking about an in-person, he showed the photo, an in-person experience where people kind of developed a shared vision for what they could do together with these different kinds of data assets. There are great tools out there now to make data sharing and data exchange possible with lots of secure kind of controls in place so that people don't feel they lose control of their data. But I think that as a community of organizations, including, I'm calling out to all of us on the chat here, who are all sitting on lots of really valuable data, I think it's up to us to also kind of come together and work to find kind of those shared vision moments where we can see what our collective good can do. So I just wanted to call that out because it struck me as a really important moment, and I think we need more of that kind of willingness to not just say we'd share, but then actually kind of do the work to make it happen so that we can bring these kinds of technologies forward. The second one that I wanted to talk about is there was a lot of different kinds of discussion on hyperlocalization. So really figuring out how we get to recommendations and services for farmers that are extremely appropriate and useful for them. So hyper-localized recommendations on soil fertility management, recommendations on inputs. It's not just getting the right recommendation, but as we know, and all of you, but Digital Green's focused a lot on advisory. You might deliver a great, even local piece of advisory, and it's completely impossible for the farmer to implement because the actual inputs aren't available. They don't have the finance, or there's some other barrier. And so I think Lulseged also on one of his last slides showed that there needs to be kind of this integration of different kinds of intelligence and systems, not just about advisory or just about kind of the biophysical environment with soils or water quality or biodiversity, but also the availability of inputs, information about markets that's available in an easy to access way for farmers so that the kinds of advice they get and the activities that they can undertake really are actionable. And I think that probably leads us to think about what can be done to make the activities more passive. And Boomitra talked a lot about remote sensing. And I think I'm very intrigued to kind of know more about the kind of way that the farmers kind of access and participate in the soil monitoring. I think there were several questions there as well. But I was intrigued also by this mention that farmers could get access to NPK recommendations. And there was sort of an integration of the information coming back to them, but also their information being used to provide that. There's a very kind of seamless and low friction way that data was being kind of exchanged to add value for farmers. And I think we're going to go in that direction. Recognizing I have 1 minute left, I just wanted to comment on sort of the AI direction that things seem to be heading and maybe what that means for all of us in agriculture. There was a comment earlier, I think, about the CIAT work saying this seems really complicated or complex. Is there a way to make this all much easier or I think more accessible? And I have been talking to a lot of different experts on AI, and we're doing our own work here. And someone gave me kind of a mental model that's helped me, which is if you think about the early days of the internet, when some of us were using Google for the first time, if you remember the first couple times you might have done a Google search, you maybe didn't know exactly what you were doing. You were kind of putting in a question, and then maybe you were sorting through many pages of information to find what you wanted. But now when you go to Google, you actually kind of feel both competent on your side and what to do, and the technology's improved and the recommendations of information is better. That's what's going to start happening in AI. We're going to start to learn how to use it more effectively, and then also it's going to respond to us and we're going to get better. And I think another example someone gave me is, if you remember how people used to need to know how to code when they originally built websites, now we can kind of use these different kind of easy to use, user-friendly platforms to build websites. I think where we're going, as I talk to people, is we're going to eventually have ways of stacking different kinds of modules. Maybe there's going to be a site-specific fertilizer module that we'll all be able to kind of pull from, or there's going to be a carbon credit kind of set of modules we can choose from that will be able to kind of deliver more easily solutions that already integrate into the experiences farmers and service providers have. And so I think imagining that where we're going is actually a lot of this complexity is going to be more obscured, and not everyone's going to have to understand the way that it comes together, but we're going to be able to access it and hopefully provide more seamless, easy experiences for farmers to get the right kind of set of options that they need for their livelihoods in farming. So I'll stop there, Parmesh, and hand it back to you.
Thanks a lot, Alisha. A very rich set of reflections and a very rich set of questions coming in. Anirudh, there are many questions coming your way. If you can answer some of them in the chat, then I'll pick the more important ones in the final conversation. And thanks a lot. And Lulseged also, thanks for responding to a lot of questions. I really appreciate you asking very rich set of questions in the chat. And all the presentations and the recordings today will be available to everyone who has registered and who is attending the webinar. Please don't worry about, you will get all these presentations within a week's time. Now I will finally turn over to Parvati Krishnan. Parvati Krishnan works as a data scientist with our team, but she's also has her incarnation as Chief Technology Officer for Analytics of a Better World, based out of Amsterdam. And she's based out of Holland, and she works with a number of teams on developing new approaches to use both data and AI there. Parvati, over to you, a brief reflection.
Thank you so much, Parmesh, and thanks to both Anirudh and Ms. Desta and also Alisha for bringing such insights around soil health challenges and how AI can play a part. And from the deck, but also in terms of our learnings from our operations and from our teams, it's clear that AI has the potential to revolutionize how we approach agriculture and leading to healthier soils, increasing productivity, and also to enhance environmental sustainability as a whole. But while the prospects are exciting, we also need to think about few fundamental prerequisites for successful AI solutions. And what we see on the ground is with countries across the globe where we work is the quality and accessibility of foundational data is extremely important. So it's not just that the data is available, but how accessible it is, what is the quality, how often it is updated. And this is where we see that comprehensive soil maps, accurate farmer registries, and investments have to go into foundational data systems to make AI work. And here we also see the rise in geospatial artificial intelligence and the amazing prospects of satellite imagery that Anirudh also briefly mentioned becomes very important. And it have helped us identify scalable solutions in terms of creating robust foundational data stacks. Now, we also see another exciting prospect is in the development and potential of large language models, because when we work together with public-private partnerships, with research organizations, there is a lot of amazing scientific work and discovery happening, but how do we make it accessible readily for farmers, and how to make it into actionable insights and recommendations become extremely difficult, especially when you consider local language challenges and access to internet, etc. So the rise in and developments across the world in large language models, we do see as a very big push in the right direction. And thirdly, my point is on, for truly like transformative impact, we also need to consider scalability and sustainability of these solutions. So in addition to helping smallholder farmers, we also need business models that work across the agriculture value chain. So we need to work together with agribusinesses, with policymakers to make better decisions that lead to improved soil health without compromising productivity. And how we can leverage, for example, targeted fertilizer subsidies and incentivize farmers in a way to adopt climate resilient farming practices. And with the urgency of climate crisis and the need for sustainable food systems, all of this is actually possible only with a bigger collaboration between international financial organizations, research, private sector, to ensure that it is not just we are developing solutions, but we bring in a lot of innovation around this in a way that we can reach the farmers who need them the most. So to conclude, I would like to say, let's embrace artificial intelligence as a tool to create a better sustainable future, but let's not forget the prerequisites and the success and sustainability of these solutions in the long run. And I think the prospects are really great, like some of the wonderful examples we saw in Ethiopia and also from India. Thanks, Parmesh, over to you.
But Parvati, and I think thanks for everyone staying in time, because we still have started with, we peaked at 143, we still have 134 people there. I want to respect everyone's time today. And I'll now pick up questions for both, I hope our presenters, Dr. Lulseged is still on the line. Yeah, because I can't see him. Can you confirm, Sunil, that he's online still?
Just a minute, sir. Let me see. I don't see him, but
yeah, I can't see him, so that's why I'm saying if I raise a question to him and he's not there, it look very odd.
yeah.
Although he has answered a lot of questions already, but so I'll take now questions for Anirudh first, and meanwhile, if you can see if you can get him back to answer some of the questions. So Anirudh, there are a lot of set of questions. Clearly, people are saying that can you explain how much Rose in Kenya would get as benefits from this whole platform, in terms of, people are very interested in knowing that smallholder income is X, how much is carbon credit going to become a part of that in future for a smallholder. So give us some sense of what that number would look like for Rose and similar farmers which are there. And what would it be for a slightly better off wheat or rice farmer in Punjab? Give some contrast to us on what these flows could look like. You don't have to be exact, but give us some, what are the initial examples looking like? So I'll ask you this and then I'll ask you another question after you stop answering that.
Sure. Thanks so much for that question. I think it was Sita sir who asked this, but yeah. So for Rose, as I mentioned, she's doing about 1.2 tons of sequestration per acre. So of course it will depend on the size of her farm, which is I believe a hectare odd. So the price at which we are trading our credits today, especially the East Africa ones, because given that we have stakeholders like the World Food Program with us, we're able to trade it at about $25 plus. So that means that Rose would be at least getting about $15 to $17 per acre. But I don't really, and of course, $15 to $17 is a big amount, but it's not a game-changing amount. It's not, more importantly, it's not a practice-changing amount, but rather what's more important is that the ecosystem that is being provided to her has enabled her to go to that next practice. Because the true win over here is, sorry for overusing the term, is the adaptation that is being created, because climate change is not going anywhere, whether Rose is a carbon farmer or not. That's the unfortunate truth. For a wheat farmer, right? So now again, it depends on how bad of a farmer you were before you adopted those good practices, right? But in general, in the about, let's say, the 10,000 farms that we have seen across Punjab and Haryana, right? Wheat is a high biomass crop. And of course, adopting these crop residue management techniques does lead to about 2 tons worth of sequestration. Now, of course, the India credits are priced different as compared to the East Africa or Kenya credits, right? So over here as well, we believe that the per acre the farmer could be making about 40 to 50 about $40 because he's making about $30, given that he's doing about 2 credits. There was a paper actually published just yesterday on Nature which said that the price of the carbon should increase by at least 45% for us to reach the tipping point where the practices that we need to change become feasible. I'll try and find the link and I'll paste it here. I would encourage everybody to read this because there is a tipping point which is required. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. That's very good insight. I think I completely agree that the change of practices is the game changer. And the carbon credit, I would consider as an incentive to help tip the farmer. And that's how we should look at it. We should not look at the absolute amount of money. But even $17 is a good amount to incentivize that. If it's marketed properly, if it's sold to the farmer properly, it becomes a very good incentive to build it. Now, the second thing which our friend Sudhir Goyal, who was additional chief secretary, Maharashtra Agriculture, is very transformational leader in the government. He's asking you, Anirudh, how can you create cadre of enablers at ground level to harvest carbon credits through Boomitra? Because we have a lot of Krishi Sakhis, we have women, and a lot of people in India now working at the last ground mile. If these people could become your carbon credit facilitators, ambassadors, prerak, as we call it, the whole model could change drastically. Are you interested in looking at that model where you have a very different kind of architecture? Because they do a lot of things. If this becomes part of their repertoire and they get very good training on how to do this and how to do that, then it would be a very interesting model to do that. So what is your reaction to that, Anirudh?
So this is music to my ears because we've done this on a very small scale. We work with 6 women-owned FPOs in Jharkhand. If any of you are here, please do let me know. Like, they're doing amazing work, right? And they're being supported by a great philanthropic body. What's really interesting is that due to the digital nature of the technology, we are able to overcome some of the social barriers that exist. But I think more importantly, we are able to generate income for them through digital capacity building. And like reading a dashboard is just the beginning. That it has cascading effects going all the way from banking operations to market linkages and creating sort of marketplaces for themselves. So I think that is a true enabler. We'd love to work with the Krishi Sakhi program. As I said, we're working on a very small scale. We're a very young company, but we would love to have a million Krishi Sakhis rather than just the 50 odd that we're working with today.
Okay, so let's talk about that because we have 38,000 women working as banking correspondents. If those banking correspondents already doing financial transactions start doing carbon market, that's potentially very revolutionary as a start. So I think let's talk separately about that. In Kenya also, we have a million farmer platform with a lot of similar approach. So I think we should look at scaled opportunities now on how whatever proof of concept you showed on small scale could be done on scale as we go forward. So we'll have a separate conversation with you on that. These are very important points, and we will also send you some of the questions which we are not able to answer now separately, and we will make this a part of the recording. Your response to the chat will also become part of the recording so that people have a complete kind of response from your side. In the interest of time, I would move to, since Lulseged joined now again, so I'll ask you a question, which is what people are asking: is this model complex, or how does this get simplified? That's what people are asking. It looks like a complex model. If we have to implement it in another country, what is your advice to implement it in another country? And the second question is that what is the value value add which AI will bring to soil health advisory compared to what you are doing right now? Over to you. Lulseged, can you hear me?
Unmute me, Alkutio. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So did you get
Very
the
sorry,
question
I have to
asked
jump
you?
to another. I don't know what happened. My machine refused to work. Then I'm on the Gefes laptop who came from a neighboring office. So
Okay.
maybe, the first question I had is maybe I can start with that, and then the soil health one, maybe you can.
So the first question is that it looks very complex. If we take it to another country, is it a way of simplifying this as we go to another country, or so that's what people are asking, that complexity might be difficult to scale up in other places. That's the question.
Thank you so much. Once more, very sincere apologies for what has happened. So I think the complexity, we try to show a bit of details so that we can receive comments from colleagues. Otherwise, it's not very complex as it appears on the screen the way I showed, because we have already automated the whole process from the data until the advisory calculation and dissemination and feedback collection. So it's very easy to fine tune and implement in another country. The process looks a bit complicated because we want to try to show some details. So now, for example, we are trying to do in Kenya and Ghana to pilot. And also we are providing training for the national members staff here to employ the approach. So we think that since once the process is automated, users without any need for detailed understanding of the coding and so on can be able to utilize and send feedbacks. So this is one related to the complexity. The other one was on soil health. I hope it is clear.
That's clear. That's clear. And the second one is more about what do you see as the value add of AI compared to what we are doing now in terms of advisory, the speed, the quality, and all that? What is the value add of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, thanks for that also. So, now the benefit for artificial intelligence, as far as I think, is we will be able to, monitor processes in near real time, use data from different sources, and even exploit some of the different large language models and so on to enrich, not only just monitor, but also conduct predictive analysis on what will happen if a farmer applies XYZ management options at a defined location and time. So it is more easier, faster, and so on. But of course, there are complexities in terms of using, these complex complex models and so on. So two things. Number one, we can bring in different features together, as Alicia said, in a modular term, or we can just link all the processes in an automated manner. So that's, I think, for soil health, even we can have key indicators of soil health and monitor them over time and try to prescribe different management options and see what will happen with time, with climate change, with population change, and so on and so forth. This is my perspective.
Final question, what's your advice for the World Bank to invest in this area going forward in Ethiopia and Africa?
Thanks. So I think, as I tried to mention during the presentation, I think World Bank has taken very good measure in supporting the CGR overall through the ACRA, Accelerating CGR Climate Research in Africa, which was more or less on climate information service and climate smart agriculture. But since this year, there is a collaboration to do more on soil health so that we can work on soil health perspective, not just on climate aspects. So for me, World Bank can push on that, strengthen that support, work on the African countries, pilot some of the models, existing practices in different countries, and try to standardize and also harmonize. One important thing I want to make comment is there are different actors in Africa, sometimes in one country or sometimes in different countries, doing more or less similar things, but using different approaches, involving different stakeholders. So trying to bring those together, like forming a coalition, a unified front will really be very nice. You know, the donors can form a coalition, the development organizations can form a coalition, research units can form a coalition and work together as a unit in different countries to harmonize, because at some point we may end up confusing the countries or the farmers or the researchers if we do different things, you know, different organization going in a different country and doing different things. So World Bank can play that role, and it has started already with the soil health perspective from the ACRA project. And I hope there will be a very good entry point to even, you know, create partnership during this Africa Soil Health and Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit in the coming 1 week or so. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So we look forward to interacting with you and others at the Soil Health Summit in Nairobi, and then we will try to build on that. Anirudh, there is another question for you, which is coming, is that people are asking that, you know, how much time you keep on measuring this carbon there? Is it a kind of a perpetual thing that we will have to work on? Or is there a system established whereby this will be done systematically at regular intervals or something? That's a technical question. And then the other questions people are asking about the business models of how does this get combined with soil testing and, you know, all the other services which are being delivered, maybe finance. If people start getting credit because of that they are doing carbon sequestration, and they too can link, then this might become even more attractive as a value-add business model. So your perspectives on both those questions, please.
Sure. Thank you so much for these questions. First, regarding what time we are measuring, right? So this because when we measure the soil carbon is a very, very important parameter, right? So again, I talked about overcrediting a little bit during my presentation. So we could essentially look at a time period after the rains where the soil carbon is at the maximum level, measure it out. But that's not the right way to do it. How we do it is we take the hottest month in the particular country. We measure the soil carbon during a day where all the satellites that we use, the images are available and we can compute it. Then of course we look at the hottest month of the previous year, right? And it may not be exactly the same day, but it's the same month and maybe sometimes the same week as well. And then we look at the soil carbon 1 year back, and the delta which is measured, that is the carbon credit or the carbon increase that has taken place. So that's how we measure it. We're always trying to be conservative in our predictions, so that because as I said, it's a virtual commodity, so the integrity is very, very important. With regard to how can it be clubbed, so with other incentives, right? So I think there are, again, like leveraging our technology, there are many fintech plays which are also possible. There are a couple of banks, for example, who have asked us, because I may be wrong in this, but currently how you decide an interest rate is based on the value of your land, and not particularly because the land is not, as a farmer, the land is not your asset, the soil is your asset. But imagine an alternate world where you just give us just taking the example of India, from your New Delhi office, you give us a field in your Connaught Place office. Let's say you give us a field in Hardoi district in UP. And you just give us the KMLs, and we go back in time for the past 4 years, look at the NPK, soil moisture, carbon, and then give you a cumulative report saying that, hey, this might be a half-acre farmer, but their soils are really good. They've been maintaining really good levels. So that's why this is not a very risky loan for you to give out, compared to the 100-hectare farmer who's pumping in pesticides and fertilizer, too much of it, but because he or she is a 100-hectare farmer, you're giving them a better deal. So I think more than the credit being layered onto that, I think if we can repurpose, I don't want to say subsidies, but if we can repurpose the way we look at data, I think that becomes a very interesting proposition. And I think it will end up saving money for the government as well.
So that's a very, very forward-looking thought. I think we are working with one of the refinancing banks in Mexico, FIRA, to create a kind of state-of-art data platform, which then will be offered to the banks. So banks will be refinanced, but also be given data along with that. And so we will connect you with them. That's a very interesting perspective, because there are financial institutions which might see this as a new generation kind of work, which it's not just carbon markets, about, you know, how do you make more rational decisions about finance, which are not based on very superficial indicators, but something which is even as deep as soil. Literally, it is deep. Soil is deep. What you see superficially outside, there's something below that. And if we can make that business case for investing in soils through our financial markets, that would be quite an interesting forward-looking thought. So let's keep on working on that. And I want to now acknowledge, I want to thank all the people who have attended. There are people from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, India, all places of the world. In Africa, about 8 countries are participating today. I really appreciate all your questions, participation. Please write to us. Sunil, can you put our email ID also there? So please write to us if you want to share anything else in this series. We want you to contribute, and especially the people who are developing new approaches all the time. And we would like to really work very closely with you, and also provide a platform which allows you to link with other innovators all the time. I want to thank Lulseged and Anirudh, Alisha, Pavati for really sharing their thoughts today. It's a very rich webinar. I think personally I've learned a lot of new things myself, and we will follow up with you to collaborate more closely with you on how we can work with you closely through our investments and our clients and platforms there. Look forward to watching this space. The next in the series is going to come in another 15 days. All of you who have joined today will get intimation about the next webinar, and we look forward to working very closely with you. I'm closing it a little bit early, so allow you a little bit extra time. And I really appreciate all of you spending so much time and bringing your creative thoughts as well as ideas to this platform. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Anirudh. Bye, Lulseged. Bye, Alisha.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
Parvati.
Parmesh.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your coming here. Yeah.
Thank you so much.